So this is the Rubaiyat. Rubai is a quatrain. It's a Persian word, little stanza, 4 lines, and it's quite old, 12th century, something like that. And Fitzgerald, who did various versions, and I'm going to go by the first version he wrote sometime around about 1850 or 59, I think. And it was originally, supposedly, put together by Omar Khayyam. This particular version is beautifully illustrated. So there is some controversy with this particular translation, because how much does it really follow the original? Well, it's hard to say. I don't know enough about that. But it's like everything. The translator will always impose his or her own understandings or ideas. You can't get away with that. And certainly, and I said in a previous episode, Fitzgerald here has various versions, and they're all different. So you have to be aware of that. What, though, is it about? I've become aware of the fact that in the East, the tradition or the acceptance of what it is quite different from the West. Where then is the meeting? It's highly spiritual. It seems to me it's about life is fleeting. You're here once. Make the most of it. Enjoy. It's also about the fleetingness of time. Everything changes. But I'm going to talk about the way in which it's written first of all. And of course, it could be mirroring the original. I don't know. Because once you are rhyming in English, that's not necessarily how it would have been in the original. There's 4 lines. It's a quatrain. And it goes A, A, B, A. So effectively, lines 1 and 2 will rhyme, and the last one will rhyme. But the third one, it doesn't. And it's this break, and it's a bit of tension. So I tell thee this, when, starting from the goal, over the shoulders of the flaming foal, of heaven's Polwyn and Mushtara they flung, in my predestined plot of dust and soul. Now just reading that, and it was just a random choice, there are going to be some things mentioned in the Rubaiyat. Unless you know Persian, it's going to go over your head. That in itself, if you're like me, you want to find out, but I don't think it detracts from the flow of what is being said. And it's quite powerful. So we will begin with quite a jolt, because the first line says, "Awake!" Okay? "For morning in the bowl of night has flung the stone that puts the stars to flight. And lo, the hunter of the east has caught the Sultan's turret in a noose of light." I'm going to talk about that to begin with. Michael Geet, who is a pastor, a priest in the UK, he did a fantastic study of this. We're waking up. It's night time. The morning in the bowl of night. And what Michael Geet talks about is that there used to be bowls of water that would reflect the stars at night, assuming it was cloudless. And then if you threw in a stone, it ripples it breaks that imagery. It means the night's done. Awake for morning and the bowl of night has flung the stone that puts the stars to flight. And lo, and that's a typical word that you get in a lot of translations, certainly in the 18th and possibly 17th century. And lo, the hunter of the east, that's the sun, has caught the Sultan's turret in a noose of light. So beautiful imagery, really is. I'm just going to read the second stanza, or Rubai. "Dreaming, when dawn's left hand was in the sky, I heard a voice within the tavern cry, 'Awake, my little ones, and fill the cup, before life's liquor in its cup be dry.'" If I've learned anything over the last 5 or so years, is that when you look at anything like this, there is the simplistic surface level understanding, but there's something much deeper, allegorical perhaps, hinting to something else. As dawn was rising, he heard in a tavern, and it could have been close by, Awake, little ones, which are us, and fill the cup of life, before life's liquor, our life source, runs dry. Make merry while you're alive, while you're here. So I'm not going to read all of the Rubaiyats, I'm just going to give you snippets. There's 75 stanzas in the first edition. It's extremely mournful, melancholy, spiritual. I think it's wonderful. And you get a whole host of different things being flung at you. I'm just going to go through some things that I just basically highlighted. Could make sense, I don't know. You know how little while we have to stay, and once departed, may return no more. That's about life. Won't be long. The bird of time has but a little way to fly, and lo, the bird is on the wing. So time's ticking. How sweet is mortal sovereignty, think some. Others, how blessed the paradise to come. So we all have a choice in life, don't we? We either think this is great because we're here, or there's something better coming. Depends on how you want to see things. The worldly hope men set in their hearts upon turns ashes, or it prospers, and anon, like snow upon the desert's dusty face, lightning a little hour or two is gone. Beautiful. We set our hearts on things. We think they're important, but they're going to go very quickly. In the scheme of things, we're not here long enough to think that what we do has any long-term effects on this planet, on this world. Now, this is an interesting one because it uses a word caravanserai. And when I first came across it, I thought, what's that? I get caravan, but caravanserai was trade caravans going through the vastness of Asia and the steppe. Little places to meet up on the road, park their donkeys or camels, and then bed down for the night. There were inns, effectively, on roads, and that's the caravanserai. And this is what this Rubai says. Think in this battered caravanserai, whose doorways are alternate night and day, so he's talking about our life, how sultan after sultan with his pomp abode his hour or two and went his way. All the rich and all the famous and all the influential substitute sultan for presidents, prime ministers, chancellors. Yeah, they're there in their pomp. They abide around a couple of hours, but then they're gone. And it's like that. It's all about our fleetness of existence in this fleetness of time, and is all heading towards an end point. Ah, my beloved, fill the cup that clears today of past regrets and future fears. Tomorrow? Why, tomorrow I may be myself with yesterday's 7,000 years. What does that mean? It's basically everything is immutable. Our tomorrows is ourself yesterday, but also 7,000 odd years back. There's this perpetual cycle of humans all doing the same thing, and we all think we're unique, but it's not. It's a run of time of which we're a very small part of. Quite challenging, perhaps. It's also one of those things that I can see, I'm not going to read this, it's too difficult to understand and doesn't make sense. And somebody who I showed this to did say that. So, lo, some we loved, the loveliest and best, that time and fate of all their vintage pressed, have drunk their cup a round or two before, and one by one crept silently to rest. Recently my son got married, and it occasioned my wife and I to talk about our own wedding day, and the photos that were taken. And there was the group photo, every wedding has it. And yet within 3 or 4 years after that photograph was taken, a lot of the nearest and dearest were no longer with us. And some were quite young, accidents, people passed on because of illness. And that's what this is saying. So he's going to talk about room here. Room is life, our existence. And we, that now make merry in the room they left, and summer dresses in new bloom, ourselves must we beneath the couch of earth descend, ourselves to make a couch. For whom? We tarry here, we're eventually going to go 6 feet under, and then someone's going to take our place. And this is what Rubaiyat is all the way through. He's talking about, there's one line here, the knot of human death and fate. It also talks quite interestingly about coming into this life. So I don't know if this is Fitzgerald or the original, Omar Khayyam. 34, the first edition, says this: "Then to this earthen bowl did I adjourn, my lip the secret well of life to learn. And lip to lip it murmured, while you live, drink, for once dead, you never shall return." It's about making the most of things. Beautifully rendered in, well, depending on the edition, various forms of language. It can be quite dramatic and startling at times. Fate is like written by our actions. The moving finger writes, and having writ moves on. Nor all thy piety nor wit shall lure it back to cancel half a line, nor all thy tears wash out a word of it. So we make our own destiny. We make our own fate. Once it's written, you can't go back. So make a good destiny. And then it's, I guess, coming towards the end, and we begin to question, what was it all for? Why? Then said another, surely not in vain my substance from the common earth was taken, that he who subtly wrought me into shape should stamp me back to common earth again. Yeah, that's what it is. So it's a beautiful thing to read and digest, and obviously dip in and out of. Each individual version slightly different. The artwork is superb in this. Ah, love, could thou and I with fate conspire to grasp this sorry scheme of things entire? Would not we shatter it to bits and then remould it nearer to the heart's desire? If we could, especially towards the end, through death, infirmity, illness, we may prefer to have it otherwise. But we can't do that. And then, once we're gone, moon of my delight, who knowest no wane, the moon of heaven is rising once again. How oft hereafter rising shall she look through this same garden after me? In vain. In the West, this was not known of for centuries. Some may have come across it in, say, the 17th, 18th century. Specifically, I'm talking about the East India Company and so on. The nations that settled the subcontinent, Portugal, the Netherlands, the French, the British. Some may have come across it, some may have taken it back. Of course, time then was much different. I think it required the softening of, or the accepting of other beliefs in the 19th century. So there was the rise of theosophy, in which it was a blending or a mixing of thought and ideas from different religions to compose perhaps another understanding of what life is for. That this then became popular and has continued to be so. A couple of things. The fact that this demonstrates that it's down to the caprice of one translator to give various versions. That has to be borne in mind, that what we're reading is not necessarily what it was in the original. Also, how we interpret what is being said. The controversy is, how accurate is this to the original? I've read that it's Sufi mysticism, and it's talking about the soul and God, or in this case Allah, and that effectively what has been taken into the English is completely different, and it's what's included and what is not included is, I think, of importance as well. But in its own right, if you knew none of that and you just came across the first edition, yes, the language is slightly dated. It would be written or rendered differently in modern English, perhaps less fluent, perhaps more stumbling, perhaps a bit more stark. But there's a beauty to the language, and especially I think there's a beauty to what is being said or what is put across. Now, if you're not of a spiritual disposition, it's going to literally leave you cold. Who cares that it's talking about we've got only a finite amount of time? In my experience, a lot of people don't want to be confronted by that. if they do, they'll turn away from it. So it's not going to be for everyone. It's extremely, well, I know it is. It's not widely read, but it is read nonetheless. And it's just one of those things that I think it enhances your own understanding of how certainly other people perceive life, even if it's not your own. There's some really good stuff in here. And for myself, in this modern world, in the world of today, people struck the stage trying to look grandiose and in control, or should be listened to, like bantam cocks. And this is saying, but they won't be around for long. There's more important things. Focus on yourself, have fun, enjoy, just relax. Enjoy it while you're here. And I suppose that's, for me, a benefit, because I spent far too much of my life not doing that. I was focused on the coin. Well, none of that matters now, because that's all in the past. So, the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, rendered into English by Edward Fitzgerald, but also with this version, illustrations, superb illustrations by Robert Stewart Sheriffs. My only regret with this one is that I got it second hand. This is nice to have, but it's just becoming too dog-eared. But I think I'm going to keep it in this version. That's quite a nice colour. Because I'll need to read it again. I don't think I've fully got the full measure of it, or even I've not fully digested each individual version to make a real conclusive decision as to what it really is about. And I'm more interested now, having just a little bit of research, to find out how it differs from the West and the East in the interpretation. And obviously, I think it's beholden to whoever reads it to really get to grips with the Eastern, or the original meaning, if it's to have any value. So there you go. The Rubaiyat. Ta-ta for now.